Hello.
How are you?
Oh, I'm good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I'm very well. It's a far more
Good.
sensible time of the day for me than it is for you. It's just coming up to midday here. So what time is it there? Like three, four?
3:55.
Yeah. Nice.
Yep.
Bless your heart.
Yep. This insomnia is starting to get annoying
Yeah,
because who needs sleep, right?
exactly. Oh no, sleep deprivation is the worst. Like there's a reason that they use it as a form of torture, sleep deprivation.
It is. It's bad.
So I feel
I
for
know.
you. I feel for you.
But at least we get to record. That's always fun.
There's that. And, an hour of talking to me will put you right back to sleep.
What does Vic say? She always finds the silver lining in things, right?
Yes, Queen of Silver Linings or something
So,
like that.
yeah. Yeah.
So there you go.
That's the silver lining is we can record, which is always fun.
Yeah. So hopefully we're not going to ramble on for 3.5 hours today like we did last time.
That one was fun.
It was
I
so
enjoyed
much
doing that
fun. It
one.
was so good. So when people listen to this episode, this is only a week after we recorded our Maya and Andy episode, which, when edited,
Yep.
turned into 3 episodes.
Hmm.
So we're kind of time traveling
We are.
because as people are listening to this, we're 3 weeks into the future.
We are. That's true.
But we're going back, aren't we, to kind of business as usual, going back to our episode breakdowns. But if people like the Spotlight On series, then we can definitely do another one, maybe after the mid-season finale for
Yeah.
season 2. And I put up I don't know if you saw, I put on Instagram, I put up a little question box for people to try and guess what the episode was going to be.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And I got a bunch of people guessing that it was the Lost Storylines episode. And we have had a few emails about the Lost Storylines episode and messages, people asking when we're going to do that. So, what do you reckon? Should we do that one next?
Yeah. Or we're gonna have to binge watch the show again to look for the lost storylines this time.
Speak for yourself. I'm not doing another 60-hour session.
Oh, come on.
Oh, all right. Since you asked so nicely.
I gotta watch every episode and see if there's a missed storyline.
Oh man, I think I've got a list. I think I've maybe got about 10 or 12 things that I think they failed to follow up on.
Oh, okay, that's not bad.
I think there's a handful there. Some more prominent than others.
Yeah, it could be a lot more.
Could be. So, guys, if you can think of any, as I say, I think I've got maybe like 12 or so on my list of varying degrees of importance and kind of glaring omissions and stuff. But any that you can think of, folks, do your thing. Get in touch with us and let us know, and we'll investigate it further.
Dun dun
Dun,
dun.
dun, dun. But for now, I guess we'll just dive right back into season 2.
Yeah. What's the name of the episode?
It's called Under the Surface, and it aired on the 11th of October 2018. It was written by, and we've got a returning writer, so it was written by Tia Napolitano, who wrote episode 8 of season 1, which was the party bus episode.
Okay.
Directed by Milan Chaloff, who directed I can't remember what it was called, the one where Marshall gets electrocuted,
Oh, okay.
which I
Yep.
thought was a really good episode, kind of very high octane. So maybe he's
Yeah,
like an action guy. I don't know.
maybe.
And this was also a crossover episode with Grey's Anatomy, if people wanted to
Oh,
watch them in tandem. So I think it's all different over here anyway. because I think at some point they were even on different TV stations over here, different channels. But I think when these aired, it must have been that Grey's was on first at 8 o'clock or whatever, and then Station 19 followed at 9. Whereas I think now it's the other way around, right? That Station 19 goes
Hmm.
first and Grey's goes after.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So for Station 19 to make perfect sense as to why the Nipper runs off, you need to watch Grey's Anatomy season 15, episode 4, Mama Knows Best first.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah. Karina DeLuca's in it, I'm just saying.
That's why we need to watch it.
It's a reason that you might want to watch it.
Just a small reason.
Small reason.
No, nothing big.
Yeah. So back to Station 19, they appear to have abandoned the cold opens for season 2 because we didn't get a cold open. We opened with Dean and Andy kind of straight into the episode. So what do you feel about the change of format and the cold opens not featuring anymore?
I kind of like the transition that they made. I found it to be a little bit more interesting. And I think if they get more interesting, the intros as the seasons go on, because I think they're maybe learning.
Yes.
So they're a little bit more, they capture my attention a little bit better.
Yeah, and I like that it kind of more focuses on the firefighters rather than the incidents. So
Yeah.
that means that we get a little bit more of an in-depth look at the main characters rather than just focusing on this is how the fire's going to start that we're going to put out later. It just feels a bit like it's got a bit more substance to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
So breaking this one down into blocks, I thought this one was super incident heavy. So I kind of split it up into Travis because there was a bit of a focus on Travis's return. Sullivan, because I felt like it was a real kind of almost character study of Sullivan, a little bit kind of introducing us to him, making sure we know what he's about, at least from our
Yeah.
guys' perspectives. And then the incident. Does that seem about right to you?
Yeah.
Okay. So shall we start with Travis?
Sure.
So he and Grant are having breakfast together, and Grant is trying to convince Travis to ask Sullivan for more time off following his heart surgery arising from the skyscraper fire. And I don't know about you, but I felt from their conversation that they were at odds about that, and that the extended leave
Oh, yeah.
was very much Grant's idea, and that Travis was actually kind of itching to get back to work.
Yeah, I agree.
And then he goes to 19 initially to have that conversation with Sullivan about getting some extended leave, donuts in hand. But the team all get called out, and so he ends up just hanging out in reception with Warren, basically. When Pruitt comes through carrying his little box of trinkets from what was his office, which we'll talk about later, telling Travis and Warren that he's got some room at home now for his little box of bits, bless his heart, instead of the truth, which is that Sullivan's basically packed up his stuff for him and thrown him out. But again, we'll talk about that later. But Travis asks Pruitt and Warren and Ben for some kind of pointers of how he should approach Sullivan to ask for more time off. And Pruitt says to be very clear, because he's good at jumping to conclusions you never had any intention of him jumping to. And Ben chimes in that he makes his mind up about you very fast. So with that, Sullivan radios into Ben from the scene of the incident, asking for blueprints of the sewer system. So then Travis, along with Pruitt, jump into action alongside Ben, getting on the phone and trying to get hold of the water company, etc. And then we later see, whilst Travis is in the midst of basically doing his job that he's not there to do, that Grant texts him and he just clears the message off the screen and carries on working. then he later confides in Pruitt that he's been stalling with Grant and that he is desperate to come back to work. And when Grant comes to meet him or pick him up or what have you, they have a bit of an argument in the barn about Travis returning to 19. Grant doesn't seem to think that Travis is capable of taking it easy. And he says, "You're only supposed to be here an hour today, and look what's happened." But Travis tries to convince Grant that it's good news, that he feels ready to come back to work and to feel the good news. But Grant is just worried about losing Travis again, because he said that when he was waiting for Travis to come out of surgery, he was absolutely terrified and he doesn't ever want to feel that feeling again.
Which I kind of thought was, Travis told him before that he doesn't date because of that, because he doesn't want to put somebody through that. And
Exactly.
so now when he said that, I was like, well, Travis kind of told you that already, that you're going to be worrying about him all the time.
Yeah.
So,
And I just think that some people kind of probably aren't cut out to be the partner or the spouse of somebody who puts their life on the line,
yeah,
day after day. And I don't think I'm that sort of person. Like, with my anxiety levels, I don't think I could do it. And so I think you just kind of have to know yourself enough to. I think it takes like an incredibly brave person to allow yourself to love somebody who you could lose at any time. I mean, I know that theoretically we could all lose our significant other at any time of the night or day. Things happen in
right.
life. But I think that, yeah, it takes an incredibly, incredibly brave person to love somebody that puts their life on the line. And I don't think I'm brave enough to do it. And I don't think Grant is either.
Yeah, I agree.
So do we think that this is the beginning of the end for Grant and Travis?
I would think so. I think Grant kind of made it clear, and I don't think Travis wants to put him through that. So I think they'll be better off as friends.
I genuinely can't remember at what point this doesn't work out.
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't remember either. I just know it doesn't.
Yeah. But it feels like the beginning of the end, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Anything else for Trav?
No, which is weird because usually we have more to talk about with Travis, but there just isn't. It's just not there.
No, and I
So,
think that it's that whole thing of him just being kind of married to the job, I guess. That he loves his
hmm
job, that he is, and this comes into play again later on, doesn't it, in season 6, when he tries to get himself into politics and realizes that he can't, because in his heart he is just a firefighter through and through. And I think that this probably
yeah,
is just so much a part of him and a part of his identity and a part of his life. And I think that we see that here, that he literally almost died on the job. He's had to have major surgery. It was a coin flip as to whether he lived or died, and he can't wait to get back out there and do it all again, because it's just part of his being.
yeah.
So much so that he will choose it over a very, very handsome man that cooks eggs at 40 degrees for 140 minutes or whatever it was. No, the other way around. 140 degrees for 40 minutes. That would be absurd, wouldn't it, otherwise? But you take my point.
It looked interesting, didn't it, in the mason jar?
The eggs in the jar, yeah.
Didn't it look interesting? I thought it looked
It did
interesting.
look interesting. I can't let my missus watch that episode, because that'll be my life next if she sees that. You know what she's like with food. Let us never mention it in her presence.
Oh, come on, it might be good.
It's an egg.
You don't like
I
eggs?
love eggs. I had an egg for breakfast this morning, but I just don't feel like it's going to be any more of an egg for having been cooked for 40 minutes than if I just whack it in a frying pan for 4 minutes.
Wasn't there wasn't other stuff in the mason jar? It wasn't just eggs, was it?
I don't know. He didn't mention it. He just said that he'd cooked the eggs for 40 minutes at
I could have sworn there was
140
other
degrees.
stuff in it, but
There probably
I
was,
could be
but they
wrong.
they never made it clear what it was. Okay, mason jar eggs or Karina's French toast? What do you want for breakfast?
I'm a French toast girl, so I'd pick that
Same Z's.
any day.
Same Z's.
So I love French toast.
I love French toast.
Now I want French toast.
You're going to have trouble eating French toast while we do this. But if you want to give it a go, I'm supportive.
I might make some when we're done, honestly, at whatever time in the morning it is.
I had a sausage and egg muffin this morning with melted cheese.
Oh, that sounds
It
nice.
was good. It was good. I'm getting hungry again now talking about food. Right, shall we talk about Captain Firegrinch, Robert Sullivan?
Sure.
So the show doesn't open with Sullivan, but it opens with Dean and Andy dropping off a patient at Grey Sloan, and Dean is trying desperately to find a way not to go back to the station because of Sullivan. And he coins the phrase Captain Firegrinch. And incidentally, it's got nothing to do with Sullivan, but we find out that Ripley has been the interim captain for 6 weeks prior to Sullivan's arrival. So that might explain why and how he and Vic kind of got close, because it seemed to be quite quick, didn't it? Him and Vic, when that finally happened.
Yeah.
So if she's
Yeah.
been working directly under him for 6 weeks, that'll do it. Makes more sense to me now. Anyway, Dean discloses to Andy that Sullivan's never liked him, and Andy tells Dean to make Sullivan like him, which is what she intends to do, and she tells Dean to watch and learn because by the end of the day, Sullivan will be basking in her awesomeness. Okay.
Okay.
If you say so. And then we learn more about Sullivan through Maya, Jack, Vic, and Ben in the Beanery. We learn through them that he doesn't eat with them, and that makes Maya feel like she's doing something wrong when she's eating. And Ben says they're going to be late for mid-shift lineups, so we know he's implementing strict new rules. And we also learn that he's having them run all sorts of drills because Warren says that he's concerned that Sullivan's going to use those drills to rank them. And Jack confirms that he hasn't changed since the academy. So it's giving us a nice little background into how Sullivan does things, I guess. Thought that was nicely done. Pruitt attends the station, and in what was his office, as we mentioned before, his belongings have already been packed up into a box by Sullivan. Pruitt wants to discuss his future at 19 because he says that he's almost finished his cancer treatment, but Sullivan says he doesn't have time because he can't be late for the mid-shift lineup, but he also says that no discussion is necessary and tells Pruitt to enjoy his retirement.
Yeah, which makes him mad because he's not retired, right?
Exactly, yeah. Then during the mid-shift lineup, he notices that Vic has a button missing. He looks almost disappointed that he can't pick a hole in Jack's outfit. And then he's pretty awful to Warren, who's burnt his hand during a call, which is actually explained more in Grey's. Not much more, but a bit more. It was at the same call where they came across Max's mum. But Warren tells Sullivan that he patched himself up, and Sullivan says that he knows Warren used to be a surgeon and an anesthesiologist before that, and asks him what's next after firefighting. And Ben says that he's sticking with firefighting, and Sullivan says that only time will tell. But that whilst he's here, Warren and his hand are Sullivan's assets, and when he does something like breaking protocol, removing a glove, resulting in that burn, or when he leaves one of his own bleeding in the stairwell, he risks losing one of Sullivan's assets, and then he puts Warren on desk duty. And then, with perfect comic timing, that's when Travis walks in with his little box of donuts, asking who wants the Bavarian cream.
Yeah, that was funny. That was a
funny.
nice little funny line to have in a serious moment.
Yeah. And then a call comes in before Sullivan can move his attention to Maya. But I think that Maya would have come out of it looking pretty well.
Probably. We'll see what happens.
She's well turned out. She was going to be fine. Then the incident happens, and we'll talk about the incident separately if you're okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
But then after the incident, Andy has quite an incident. And after the incident, she has a bit of an argument with Maya. And then, leaving the argument with Maya, she goes to find Sullivan. And you won't be surprised to hear that doesn't turn out great for her either. So she makes a joke with him about a poll going around as to whether or not he eats. And he explains to her that his reason for not eating with them is that the team should be able to relax, but no one will be able to relax around him. And Andy suggests that if he ate with them, he might get to know them better, which might lead him to trust them more, before again, which she does on the call, which we'll discuss then, but she speaks in Spanish, saying that she doesn't know why she bothers trying with him. At which point he shocks her by thanking her for the invitation to eat with them in Spanish. And he tells her that he's heard her less than flattering commentary all day, and that when she bends the rules, she makes it okay for the rest of the team to do the same. And she argues that she doesn't bend the rules for no reason, but he asks her who she is to decide what is a good reason for bending the rules. Tells her that she is not the most experienced and she is not in charge. And Andy storms off again. So I think, apart from what happens at the incident, that's kind of all of the Sullivan-y stuff.
Yeah. We didn't really see much more of him other than that.
No. I thought the talk around the table was actually really telling.
Yeah.
The fact that he's just his mere presence is making them feel insecure and uncomfortable. And I didn't like Maya saying, it makes me feel like I'm doing something wrong by eating. And then they're rushing their meal while they're talking about that so they can do a mid-shift lineup. But it feels like they're probably always under scrutiny with him.
Yeah, I agree. He very much comes across that way.
Yeah, and Warren's worrying that everything they do is kind of an ongoing performance review. So maybe he's got a point saying that he shouldn't be eating with them because they should be able to relax at some point. And he knows that they can't relax around him. Maybe he's got a point.
Yeah.
The way that he spoke to Warren in the lineup was absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
Calling him an asset.
Yeah, I didn't like that at all, how he called them all. He was like, you all are my assets. It's like, really? You can't be a little bit more personable than that?
Yeah, essentially, you're a city resource, the same way that hose is.
Right.
That's how it felt, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And then bringing up his decision to save Molly and leave Travis during the skyscraper fire was the lowest of low blows. Why do you think he did that? He wasn't there. It didn't affect him. He doesn't know Travis.
I don't know. That's a good question. It could have been that he disagreed with him.
Yeah.
And wanted to let him know that that's not how he handles things, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I just thought I didn't understand his motivation for saying it, and unless it was just to try to make it seemed like it was just there to make us think he's even more of a jerk.
Well, they're doing a good job at that.
Yeah. What did you think about him trying to get rid of Pruitt, kind of just brushing him off and saying, "Have a nice retirement"?
I thought that was rude. And he obviously still wants to help and he's willing to help.
Yeah.
And that was his home for God knows how many years.
Yeah.
So I think it was kind of rude for him to be so dismissive of him.
It was. But I think that he has to get rid of Pruitt. I think Pruitt's mere presence at the station undermines him.
Okay.
And I think that Sullivan's main problem is probably Andy. And his Andy problem will never be solved all the while Pruitt's there.
That's true.
Because I think everyone will default to going to ask Pruitt. If he was just literally there to clean toilets, I think that the whole team would default to going and speaking to Pruitt. I think he will always be their captain.
Hmm.
And so I think that literally his presence undermines Sullivan's authority. And Andy has obviously been given way too much power. If I mean, she doesn't have official authority, but I think she does have a disproportionate amount of power in
Yeah.
there because I mean, Pruitt even says to her, doesn't he? Like, I've always enabled you to speak up. That's why she gets herself into trouble with Frankel. He basically says to her, I've let you run your mouth and, get away with a hell of a lot of stuff that you're not going to be able to get away with other people. So I think all the
Right.
while he's there, the Andy problem will still be there. So I think it was really super rude and that he shouldn't be so dismissive. But I also kind of think that Pruitt being there is going to cause major issues for him.
Hmm. One, I think it'll be a distraction for Andy too, right? She's gonna constantly be worrying
Yeah,
about him.
exactly. Wanted to make sure that he's okay. And we saw that, didn't we, when he came to be with the receptionist and she got into a row with Jack over it.
I agree.
I think the only other thing for that section that I wanted to ask you about, when Andy's talking to him on that platform over the barn, and she says, if you get to know us, then you might trust us more. Do you think that he's got
Okay.
mistrust for them? Because the way that I saw it, the way the incident went, I thought that the only person that he didn't trust, and for good reason, with how that goes down, is Andy. I don't think that it's a trust issue necessarily with him, with 19. What do you think?
Yeah. Um, no, I agree. And I think he knows how they all are in their schedules and things like that. And he needs somebody that can be, I think, a little bit more reliable.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Anything else about Sullivan?
I know he's just a jerk right now.
Yes.
I totally forgot about that. How bad he was.
You won't get any arguments from me. A little bit different to Pruitt.
Yeah.
Slightly different approach.
Just a little, just a tad.
Just a little bit. Um, shall we talk about the incident?
Yeah.
Okay. So after her whole Sullivan will be basking in my awesomeness spiel at the beginning of the episode, Andy teases Dean for having a crush on Maggie Pierce, which who can blame him? She's brilliant. Before a
Yeah, that was
It
cute.
was cute. Before a frantic father comes running into the hallway of Grace Lone, desperately looking for his son who's gone missing from the hospital. So it makes more sense if you've watched the first episode. Actually, the whole thing of like why the kid was refusing to come out of the hole saying that his dad was lying to him makes far more sense if you've watched the episode of Grey's that came before it. So basically, in a
Uh-huh.
nutshell, the boy's mum collapsed. It turns out that she'd had a heart attack previously that she hadn't really noticed. And now she's got significant damage to her heart, which Maggie Pierce tried to fix. But there was too much damage, and she's now in a coma basically. And there's slim to no chance that she's going to recover.
Yep.
And before she ends up having to go into surgery when she's still conscious and just about breathing, she tells Maggie that first of all, they find Max hiding in the ambulance. And then
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
mother tells Maggie that the little boy, Max, gets very, very stressed out and scared if he's not told exactly what's going on. He needs to have all of the information because otherwise he just kind of spirals. And when the dad turns up and is given his wife's prognosis, he spends the whole episode of Grey's basically trying to keep that information from his son. But little Max
Uh-uh.
is not stupid and does know that something's going on. Maggie tries to tell him a couple of times, and the dad intervenes and basically tells her to keep out of it. And so, in the end, the kid has a massive freak out. It's actually with Andrea takes him up to the helipad and has a chat with him. And watch the episode. You find out some stuff about. He tells a really sweet story about Karina, which would take me too long to recount. But basically, because of that story, the kid kind of figures out that his mum's dying and that people are not telling him that his mum's dying, has a massive freak out and runs away. And it's all because his dad's been spending the whole day lying to him, essentially. So that's the backstory of the kid. And there's actually quite a lot of scenes with Andy and him together. Andy already offered to babysit him and stuff. So Andy's already spent some time with the kid, which makes it make more sense later on when she is the one trying to talk him off the ledge, essentially. So anyway, where we pick it up, the dad comes running into the hallway and says Max has gone missing from the hospital. And so Dean and Andy are going to go and help find the kid. We see Ryan with the rest of his team being briefed about finding the missing boy. And it's Ryan who actually finds Max whilst he's out patrolling, and he gets out of his cop car and approaches him, but then Max has another mad panic and runs away and clearly isn't looking where he's going because he ends up falling into an open drain. So when news reaches... We've all done it. When news reaches the hospital that Max is now in the sewer system, Dean and Andy hurry out of the hospital, followed by Max's dad, Maggie Pierce, and Andrea DeLuca. And Max's dad wants to go with Dean and Andy, and Dean resists. But then when Maggie says that Max's dad should be there, Dean immediately backtracks, obviously trying to impress his crush, saying, because we care, we know when to bend the rules. So he allows Max's dad to join Dean and Andy in the aid car. So they leave, and then Andrea says that he wants to go and help as well, that he feels useless where he is. And Maggie says she can't go because she has to look after Max's mother. But Andrea points out to her that there's no hope left for Max's mother, and all Maggie is doing is essentially waiting for her to fade away. And so he convinces Maggie.
That's terrible.
Yeah. It's because we women have got a higher pain threshold, you see. She was having a heart attack and just thought it was indigestion. And so, didn't go and get herself checked out, and she had all this damage to her heart that's irreparable. And so they were just waiting for her to fade away. But because there is nothing for Maggie to do now, Andrea manages to convince her to go with him, and then they head off to the scene of the incident as well. And I'm sure Minna can tell us, because one of our listeners, Minna, is a bit of an expert on greys. She's far more in the know than me, and she's helped me out with a couple of things that I've sort of semi-brought up on here and said, but I'm not quite sure. And Minna's like, no, let me tell you what it is. So I'm sure that she would be able to tell me if I'm right in saying this, but I think that this season is possibly the start of Andrea's bipolar disorder kind of coming out and becoming noticeable.
Yeah.
I think there's an earlier episode where he's quite impulsive and kind of dives in.
Is it because he's not taking his medication or what?
I think at this point, right. And again, Minna will correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that Karina at some point tells Meredith that the reason that she moved to Seattle when she did, which was like the year before, is because Andrea was now the age that her father was when his bipolar disorder started to kind of come out. And she was worried that she was noticing the same things in Andrea. So she'd basically come to check up on him and make sure that he was okay and to see if he'd inherited it. And so he didn't know that he had it. And there's kind of a lot of toing and froing between Karina and Andrea. I do think it's in this season, but I'm not really I'm not as up on Grey's. I've only ever seen it once, but I think I'm
I
right.
tried to watch it, but it was too overwhelming with how many seasons there
Yeah,
were.
I know.
It was way too
Just
overwhelming.
start at 14, mate. No need to watch it before that. Um, but yeah, and I think that there's a lot of Karina saying, Andrea, you've got bipolar disorder, and him saying, no, I haven't, because he doesn't want to be like their father because they had a very traumatic upbringing because of him. And I think that
Yeah.
there's a brilliant scene where he breaks down and says, all I ever wanted was to not be like him. Like, that's all I ever wanted to be, was not like him.
Mhm.
And, you know, now I'm like him, kind of thing. So I don't think it's that he's not taking his meds. I think that he's not diagnosed at that point. Um, but yeah, I think this is the start of his being a bit impulsive and doing not very well thought out things because he's not necessarily using his good sense. I think he's kind of in a bit of a manic phase.
Uh-huh.
And so, yeah, Minna might correct me on that, but I think that this, him saying, let's go jump in and, I know we're surgeons, but let's go and help the police department and the fire department instead of being here and doing surgery. Let's go and do this thing. He like mashes up his hands. You know, the blizzard. I know that's next season, but you know,
Yeah.
the blizzard. He like
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
Grey's blizzard episode, he goes and gets his hands mashed up with frostbite and stuff because he goes
Oh
outside
my
to try and
gosh.
hunt down a liver or something. Like, yeah, he does some very impulsive things. So, which this may or may not be one of. Anyway, so that's that. And then this has absolutely no bearing on the storyline whatsoever. But because it was so funny, I feel the need to bring it up anyway. There's an exchange in the aid car between Andy and her dad. He texts her like 911 or something. She phones him. And we only hear her side of the conversation. But he's sent the emergency signal over because his emergency is a broken washing machine. Which actually, funnily enough,
that must be it.
yeah, but funnily enough, you and I were having a conversation about that before we started recording, was broken appliances.
Yeah.
But anyway, Dean, the thing that made me laugh was we don't hear anything that Pruitt's saying, but Dean keeps interjecting in the conversation with helpful comments and
Yeah.
suggestions.
Yeah, I thought that was
It was
funny.
so funny, asking if it's a motor or a capacity issue. And then at some point, Andy mentions Pruitt's pink shirt, and Dean says in a slightly raised voice so that Pruitt can hear him, "You can pull off any fashion choice, sir. Any fashion choice." It was just a really sweet, funny scene that I wanted to
It was.
bring up. But I guess one relevant thing comes out of it because Andy asks Dean how he coped with his overbearing parents, and he said that he just moved out.
Okay.
So I guess that's the nudge that Andy needed. And because there is never a bad or inappropriate time for Andy to worry about Andy, when she arrives at the scene, and whilst Maya is running around like a madwoman trying to get equipment out of the engine to try and rescue a young boy who is in a drain, Andy tells Maya that she thinks she needs to move out of her dad's place. Oh, God. But Maya very emphatically agrees and even gives Andy the dialogue that she needs to use to tell her dad that she's going to move in. And that includes saying that she's going to move in with Maya and that she feels
Oh, okay.
yeah,
That's cool.
yeah, and that she feels confident that he's capable of folding his own boxes.
Okay.
I mean, they're tricky.
Yeah, but
He'll figure it out. He'll be fine.
yep.
And then, as kind of an aside, we find out that Andy hasn't seen or spoken to Ryan for the past 6 weeks since he unceremoniously
Yeah.
dumped her at the hospital.
Seriously.
Jack tries to give Ryan a bit of friendly advice, saying that Andy was cold with him after their breakup as well, but that they moved past it. But Ryan does not take kindly to said advice.
No, he doesn't.
Even Maya questioned Jack's motives, asking if he was messing with Ryan, but Jack said he was trying to be nice and that everyone's moved on from the Jack and Andy situation. Life's too short to be petty. And Maya says that Ryan clearly doesn't speak Gibson, and neither does she.
That was a cute line.
It was cute. None do I, for that matter. Then Maggie and Andrea turn up to help. Sullivan kind of distributes them, tells them where to go, and then tells Maya that he wants her to take point on Truck, and that if anyone is going to harness up, hi Bailey, he wants it to be her. And then he slightly ruins it by telling her not to screw it up.
Right.
I've got every confidence in you, except I don't.
Do we think that he was already developing feelings for her at this point? Sullivan towards Andy?
No, I think he genuinely hates
No.
her.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think at this point she was like an annoying mosquito that he wanted to swat at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
just my feeling. I don't feel any kind of, there's like that tension where it's like you are yelling at each other but really want to rip each other's clothes off. And it wasn't that kind of tension. It was a rip your head off tension, not a rip your shirt off tension.
Yeah.
I think
Right.
at this
That's
point.
true.
Yeah. When he says to Maya, I want you to take point and harness up, for me, Andy is noticeably, the look on her face, they kind of show the look on her face, and it's a mixture for me of shock and panic.
Uh-huh.
Do you agree, or did you have a different reading of that?
No, I agree 100%. Definitely.
Yeah.
Panic for sure.
Yeah, at the thought of Maya taking point over her. And so she immediately chases after Sullivan, offering to jump in wherever she can in any capacity, except clearly she doesn't mean any capacity, because her opening gambit is to also take point but on engine, followed by also harnessing up. And when he says that she can start with driving, she is less than impressed.
Right.
So not any capacity then in a leadership role. Vic, Dean and Andrea are all riding together, and Dean uses the opportunity to try and get intel on Maggie from Andrea.
This scene was so funny.
It was really, really funny. With Andrea with his little head poking through.
Yeah.
All excited because he's on the fire truck. But yeah, he has to break Dean's heart by telling him that Maggie has a boyfriend. And then again, we get a little bit of background as to how everyone's feeling under Sullivan, because Vic tells Andrea not to get in the way because she and Dean have a lot riding on that day due to the problems they're having impressing Sullivan.
Right.
Maya and Jack have been teamed up, and she tells Jack that she used to think that him being made captain would be the worst thing, but that it's actually Sullivan. And then she clarifies with him that that's actually a compliment.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah, in Maya's way.
Yeah.
And then she says that Gibson might chew with his mouth open and very loudly, but at least he's never been too good to be there, which she clarifies again is another compliment. And he tells her that if those are compliments, he doesn't think that he speaks Bishop, to which she says that so few people do. I just absolutely loved them in that scene.
I did too. I thought it was really cute and it was funny and it was witty. And I appreciated it. It was nice.
It was brilliant. In the engine, Andy makes an assumption as to where they're headed, and Sullivan, in a very patronizing and micromanagerial way, says that the plan part is his part. So she modifies her approach and asks him for permission to head to where she'd previously said they should be going, which he grants
Right.
much to her chagrin. And then he directs her to get an update from the station. And they're both surprised to hear her dad answer the call instead of Warren. And then Pruitt assumes that Andy is on incident command.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then when she says quite pointedly that she's been told basically to keep out of it and drive, he switches to Spanish and starts complaining about the way that Sullivan is treating both Andy and him, to which she agrees, saying that he is the worst in so many ways. But at that point, Sullivan sees something on the live feed and radios in to Maya and directs her to the point at which he wants her to descend into the sewer system. And then
Hmm.
again, you see Andy look at Sullivan. And again, for me, it's like that shock and panic again that he's kind of making Maya his star player. Then Sullivan and Andy arrive at Maya's location. Maya harnesses up. Hi again, Bailey. But there's but there is a problem with her breathing equipment, and so she and Sullivan go and grab a different mask. And whilst they're back at the engine doing that, Max calls out, and so Andy just radios in that she's going to go into the sewer instead. And despite Maya yelling back over the radio that she can't, Andy just leaps into the drain anyway. No harness, no protective gear, no nothing. Just boom, straight down a hole into sewer water.
And taking it in too, right?
Oh yeah. So
Ugh.
I know. I need to go take a shower just thinking about it. Bit of mouthwash. Andy ends up being dragged out empty-handed, no Max, with both Maya and Jack berating her. She needs to be decontaminated by Andrea, given full spectrum antibiotics by Maggie Pierce, because, as you said, she swallowed the drain water.
Ugh, yeah.
I don't know why, but that amused me as well, the way that she was sat there dripping wet with both arms out and like Maggie there with her syringe ready to jab her and getting yelled at by. It was just a funny picture.
Yeah.
And it kind of said it all, really. She just looked like a drowned rat. She was, it just seemed fitting. But Maya says that she was harnessed. I can't say harnessed anymore. She was ready to go and just needed 2 more seconds. But Andy said that she had to try. And then Maya bites back and said, no, you had to step aside and let me try because now we might have lost him. Then back at 19, Warren has identified the last possible point at which they can enter the sewer system to try and save Max. But when the team get there, the access point is this tiny little hole that nobody can fit through. I mean, I could fit through it. But
Yeah, but you're tiny.
yeah, no average size human can get in that hole. So there's tension everywhere. Ryan is still poking at Jack, who says that everyone's just trying their best. Sullivan's moaning at Andy, saying that she's not to move a finger for the rest of the shift. And then Andy suggests that they just go in with a jackhammer and make the opening larger. And Maya interjects, saying that there's been recent construction and they don't know what sort of mess they'll be drilling into. But Andy just carries on explaining her idea anyway, before Sullivan shoots her a look, which prompts her to again ask for permission to add to the plan part. And he sort of nods and then tells Maya to go and get the jackhammer. But Warren, back at the station, luckily gets hold of the construction plans just in time, which confirms that they're standing just above a gas line, so they can't dig down. So Maya was right to exercise caution. But Max is nearby in the sewer and he's looking tired. And so Sullivan has a walkie-talkie attached to a line, which they drop down into the sewer so they can at least kind of talk to him. And they kind of all stand around waiting for divine inspiration of how to get him out, when Jack asks Dean how big he thinks Max is. Then Maya reads Jack's mind, tells him he's right, and says she's going to go and get the ring. And then the rest of the team kind of pick up on exactly what the plan is without anybody having to have any further verbal communication. And they all just break off knowing their roles and they go and do whatever it is they need to do, leaving Sullivan to ask if anyone wants to clue him in on what's happening. Andy is tasked with keeping Max company on the walkie-talkie. As I said, she'd already kind of babysat him a little bit in the hospital in the episode of Grace, so that made sense. And he says that he's cold, and so she asks him to think about warm things to see if it will help. And she kind of suggests the inside of a car on a hot day, a hot chocolate, his favorite blanket, and he chimes in, or a hug from his mum, which is quite sad in the context. And he says he misses his mum, and Andy breaks down in tears and says she misses her mum too. Then Max's dad turns up at the scene and takes over talking to Max on the walkie-talkie whilst the team rig up a floaty to a line which they're going to drop into the drain for Max to grab hold of so they can hoist him out. And his dad explains the plan to him, but Max is resistant, telling his dad that he's been lying to him all day. And so Andy takes Max's dad aside and tells him that he's a smart kid. He knows he's been lied to about his mother's condition and that he needs to be honest with Max if he wants Max to trust him.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so Max's dad takes the advice on board, goes and tells Max that his mum isn't going to make it, but that she's probably holding on just to feel one last hug from him. And then tells him that he's brave like his mum, and so he's going to have to let go of the sewer wall and grab the floaties so they can pull him out, which he does. And then 19 hoist him up. So then Andy goes over to Sullivan proudly saying that they did it. And Sullivan says, yeah, despite you. And he says that they wasted time that should have been focused on Max fishing her out. And she says that she took a big swing. And he says that big swings are earned and that she has not earned that privilege with him. And so then again, she switches to Spanish saying, oh, privilege, is that what you think? Then older Deluxe makes up for breaking Dean's heart by giving Vic a phone number that he got from a tall guy from 23. So breaks her heart, then he matchmakes, all evens itself out. But I liked the line from Vic where she says that 23 is where slugs go to get slower.
Yeah, it's very slow. Yeah, definitely use that one for sure.
That was great. And then we decamp to Grey Sloan, where we see Andy and Maggie watching Max and his father embrace Max's comatose mother through a window. And Andy tells Maggie about Sullivan, saying that she hindered, not helped. And Maggie asks if she wants to yell about it, offering up the supply closet that Andy cried in the pilot. And then Dean comes to get Andy and take her back to the station, at which point Maggie lets him down gently herself, telling him that she's got a boyfriend. But he leaves the invitation open, saying that if she ever finds herself single, he's just around the corner, and he makes a mean margarita. Then back at the station, Andy saunters into the equipment room saying, "Hey, Rumi," to an exhausted looking Maya, who coldly asks Andy if she's spoken to her dad about that yet. And Andy sort of muddles through saying that she will, but then she wants to talk about how weird it was with Ryan earlier in the day. Maya calls Andy out on what she did on the call, saying that she was ready to go and Sullivan had asked her to go into the drainage pipe. And Andy tries to justify her actions, saying that she could hear Max's voice, but Maya doesn't let her get away with it and says that she could also hear Maya's voice and everyone else's voices telling her to stand down. And then Andy argues that she thought she could save him, but Maya fires back with, "But you didn't." And that she actually could have if Andy had waited and let her. And Andy tells Maya that she doesn't know that and that she was right there. And Maya finishes by saying, "Yes, and you had to jump in there." So Andy then tries to smooth it over, asking Maya if she wants to talk or yell, which is, a borrowed line from Maggie. You don't want to yell about it. But Maya says that she doesn't want to do either, and she turns in, she goes to bed. And then, as we said when we were talking about Sullivan, she goes from there with Maya to find Sullivan, where she has another telling off. And then having stormed off from that interaction, she goes to find her dad, who is folding his laundry, possibly inclusive of boxes, in an office. And he starts kind of ranting about all the bits and pieces that need doing around the house. At which point she blurts out that she's moving out. And she says to him that she's got a lot going on right now and that she can't focus on that and look after him at the same time. So she's going to go to Myers, and poor
Hmm.
Pruitt just looks crestfallen. And that's the end of our episode.
Yeah.
So, did I miss anything?
No, I think the incident pretty much took over this episode. It was a lot.
Yeah,
Um, but we learned a lot too about the characters as well. So I think it was
exactly.
good.
I think I think the incident was very much used to kind of show the shift in dynamics
Hmm.
and to maybe give us a little bit of insight as to where we're going. So,
Right.
whereas Andy is very used to kind of, I don't want to say having it all her way, but
You can say that.
but Pruitt's very much kind of let Andy, um he's kind of deputized Andy almost always, and just kind of let her get away with, yeah, running the show a bit. And
Do you think that's because of the mom situation? Because he feels bad that the mom left?
I think it might kind of be that, and it's obvious from that conversation. I think it's obvious in the pilot when she's saying, right, here's your paperwork, here's this, here's that, here's your smoothie, make sure you eat something. And then when he's in that office at the end of this episode, when he's kind of saying, oh, there's a light bulb out and we need to do this and we need to do that. I
Oh, yeah, yeah,
think
yeah.
I think that what it is that she kind of runs around after him and picks up after him. She's almost taken on like a traditional 1950s housewife role, I think,
Yeah, that's true.
with him at home. And so I think that what's happened is that that's just kind of oozed into their work life as well. So she's used to picking up after him, folding his boxes, making sure that he eats his meals, changing the light bulbs and stuff at home. And so then when she comes to work, she just does exactly the same thing. And I think that their home life has just bled into their work life. And so I think because of that, they've got the same dynamic at work where she just is almost his partner,
Hmm.
and that they've got this symbiosis, this symbiotic relationship where he knows what his roles are and she knows what her roles are, and she then picks up after him at work again. But I think because of that and the familiarity and the fact that he's used to relying on Andy, he's allowed her to do that in other ways at work as well. So she does pipe up a lot more. She does tend to run the show because she runs the house at home. So then I think that she then kind
Right.
of runs the house at work as well.
So why do you think he didn't make her lieutenant until she asked?
I think because it's complicated. And I think that maybe part of it is that it's beneficial to him to have her not on the officer track. I mean, because if she'd been made lieutenant, she could have been moved out of 19. She could have been moved to a different station and promoted out of
Right.
19, because that was what was going to happen with Maya when she was made lieutenant. She was going to get sent to 23 or somewhere. So I think that there's possibly that. And I also think that maybe he wasn't entirely certain that she was lieutenant material at that point. And I don't
Well,
know
just
whether,
because, I mean, she did everything for him anyway, so it's like, why?
yeah, but I think
You know what
doing
I mean?
everything for somebody is different to being in like, that's kind of almost the opposite of being in a leadership role.
Yeah, that's true.
And I wonder if it obviously didn't occur to him that she was deserving of it. And I don't know whether that's because of her performance or the role that he allowed her to perform, whether it was related to that or whether it was related to the fact that he was too close to see her as anything other than his daughter,
Mm-hmm.
and that he didn't see her professionally and didn't see her strengths and her weaknesses necessarily professionally, that he just took what she did on face value.
Right. Yeah, that's a
So
good point.
so it was maybe a mixture of things that we will never
I
know.
was just thinking about the when Jack says that he'll step up if he needs to be captain. This was before that she went to her dad. He
Yes.
says, you were overlooked, and I won't overlook you. And so that's what I was thinking about that comment. Like if he just overlooked
Yes.
Andy, that's kind of where I was going with that one.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got a good point. Yeah. And I wonder if, yeah, it's a combination of those factors that he did overlook her, or whether he really didn't think she was. Well, no, he couldn't have not thought she was ready, really, because as soon as she asked for it, he gave it up. So he said, "Okay,
Right, he gave it to
poof,
her.
you're a
Yeah,
lieutenant." So yeah, so maybe it
right.
was that he overlooked her because he kind of just took her for granted, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So what else was there in this section? Dean and Maggie. I loved the Dean and Maggie
Yeah,
stuff.
that would have been interesting to see them together. I think that would have been cute. It would have been interesting to do that.
They would have been such a good couple. There's also some really lovely interactions with them in the previous Grays episode, and like he's really awkward and stuff. He's like
Oh, is there?
he's trying to be smooth and he's not. He's awkward as hell. But it's lovely. It's really, really cute. And they would have been far better suited than Vic and Avery, because they brought Avery over, didn't they, for Vic? And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really get Vic and Avery at all as a couple.
Mm-hmm.
It really must have
They
just
were
been,
interesting.
yeah, it really must have just been physical between them, I think, because there's no,
Uh-huh.
like, there's nothing about the two of them that's in any way similar. I just don't
Mm-mm.
get them as a couple. Whereas Dean and Maggie would have made so much sense as a couple. They would have been so cute, and I think they missed a trick not putting them together. I think that would have been lovely,
Who
actually.
was her boyfriend at the time?
Avery,
Oh, so she was dating Avery at that time?
yeah, but they were going through a rough patch.
Okay.
So I think it was a bit of a reluctant I've got a boyfriend, because I don't think they were in a good place.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, she was dating Avery.
They would be interesting together too. I don't know. I'd have to see them together.
Avery and Pierce.
Mm-hmm.
It was okay, I think.
Was it?
Yeah,
Okay.
made more sense than Avery and Vic, but not as much
Yeah.
sense as Pierce and Dean. I'm really regretful about that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, they missed a trick. Jack and Maya. I thought that was starting to get a bit flirtatious.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, the whole "I don't speak Gibson, I don't speak Bishop," Maya's
Mm-hmm.
dubious compliments. Um,
Yeah, that was
and
cute.
yeah, and although there was technically 2 years between her very disingenuous ew from the flashback in the last episode, there was only one episode between the fake ew in the flashback to this episode. So it seems like they're trying to kind of steer us in the direction of Maya and Jack already, I think.
Yeah.
Does it feel that way to you?
Yeah, and to me, they were so weird together. Did you like them together?
Jack and Maya,
Uh-huh.
they made more sense to me than Jack and Andy, I have to say.
Mm. Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, but again, and I mean, when we get to it, we can discuss it in more depth. But again, poor Jack was way more invested in it than Maya was.
Hmm.
So bless him, he keeps getting invested in these women who don't see him as a serious prospect.
I'd be interested to know if what group our listeners side with, if they think Andy and Jack or Maya and Jack.
People seem to like Andy and Jack, is my observation.
Do
I
they?
feel like
Okay.
I'm in the minority of not liking, or not disliking. I don't dislike Jack and Andy together. I disliked how Andy treated Jack in season 1.
Yeah, I agree.
I just don't understand them as a couple. I don't get how they would work,
Hmm.
because I do think Jack is a very kind of homely. I think he craves security and
Hmm.
a family and a wife and 2.4 children and a picket fence and coming home to the smell of fresh bread and Little League on Saturdays, or I don't know what day you play Little League. Sundays? I don't know, whenever you play Little League. But you know what I mean? Like, I think that he's
Yeah.
got this picture in his head of that, and I don't think that Andy can give him that. So I don't understand them together as a couple, is my take.
I wonder if Andy even ever considered them as a couple, or if she just considered them as sex buddies, and
That's what
maybe
I think.
Jack thought they were in a relationship, and Maya just thought they were just, or Andy just thought they were just having fun together.
That's exactly what I think. I think that he thought that it was heading towards, well, we know that he thought it was heading towards marriage, and
Hmm.
because he proposed, but I genuinely think that she never thought he was any more than something to do between calls.
He was something to do between
He was something to
calls.
do,
That
yeah.
was funny.
Poor
That's a funny
Jack.
way to put it. Yeah, I do feel bad for him.
Yeah, poor sod. We need good things in Jack's future.
Do we think in season 7 that Vic is going to find out about Theo and Kate?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
How do you think he's going to find out?
I don't know. I wonder if Jack will remember and whether
Right.
he'll tell her. I think Theo will
I've
be
wondered that
hoping
too.
not.
Like, is he going to forget because of the concussion?
I think that would be super convenient for Theo,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm hoping that Theo doesn't get that payoff because he doesn't deserve it.
I agree, 100%. No, Vic needs to know.
Yeah, and Jack's such a stand-up guy, and so I think
Mm-hmm.
that it would be great for Jack to be able to do the righteous thing and be the one
Right.
to tell her,
Mm-hmm.
because he'd do it gently as well. He's honestly just a really good guy, I
He
think.
is. He really is. He can be awkward sometimes, but he's a good guy.
Yeah, his heart's in the right place. So, what else from this episode? What else? Oh yeah. Something that we see here for the first time, but we see Andy repeat in season 3, and we actually discussed it in our Spotlight on Andy and Maya episode, is Andy speaking Spanish when she wants to be disrespectful in someone's presence without them noticing.
Mm-hmm.
So she does this here with Sullivan, and I honestly think that it's one of the most underhand, disrespectful things that a person could do. But it appears that she learnt it from her father, because Pruitt starts it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why, but it really upset me when we were doing the Spotlight episodes, and I saw her do it to Maya with Rigo. I just felt really upset. It really hurt my feelings that she did that to Maya. And then, as much as I dislike Sullivan, and obviously I know because I'm watching it with knowledge from further on. So I knew that he speaks fluent Spanish and so understood every word of it. But even then, I just felt really upset and angry for him. And he's an arse in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
But I just still thought that he didn't deserve that. And I just think, give someone the respect of insulting them to their face. If you're going to insult someone,
Right.
give them the respect of doing it to their face. Or just have a discussion with them about their behaviour. Or if you really have to slag them off, at least wait until they're out of earshot to do it. But don't do it right under their nose in a foreign language. I just think that's a lethal combination of like sly and cowardly. And that behaviour
Okay.
is just a little bit too toxic for me to forgive. Don't you just think that that's
Wow.
like, I just think that's super wrong. And I think that there's, like, you're bilingual.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're in a English speaking, which you live in an English speaking place, I think that if you revert to German, like just to say like, oh, this guy's, you know, pushing his trolley around the supermarket, sorry, cart around like, you know, like he's 90, like, you know, get a move on guy. That's harmless. Right?
Yeah.
Completely harmless. That's innocuous. That's nothing. But if I'm sat at a dinner table with you and your mum and you start speaking German about me at the dinner table in front of me because you don't like my table manners or something, that's now crossed a line for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I get what you're saying.
And I think that what she and Pruitt do is just all kinds of wrong.
Yeah. I mean, but it comes back and bites her because he
Yes,
speaks Spanish. So,
yeah, it does come back and bite her. Hopefully, it will teach her a lesson. But we see a similar situation with Karina and Gabriella. They speak to each other in English around Maya in season 4.
mm-hmm.
When Gabriella comes to visit, they greet each other in Italian. But then in the kitchen,
Mm-hmm.
Gabriella, and again, that's, well, it's a little bit not innocuous at some point. She says that's minus 10 points in Italian because Maya doesn't speak Italian. But I mean, she's like literally saying, you know, can you pass the flour? Can you pass the potatoes? Have you got a knife? In Italian. And Karina's saying, come on, English, please, speak English. And
Mm-hmm.
even when they're not speaking to Maya, later on, they're looking through a photograph album and they're talking to each other, but Maya's in the room and they're still speaking in English because Maya's in the room.
Yeah.
That's respectful.
Right. So we do not like the bilingual.
I just think it's really, really wrong to deliberately exclude somebody from a conversation because you can.
Okay.
And I thought that was really sly and really cowardly of them. Pruitt could have said, oh, you know, Sullivan, Andy can do more than drive. If he really wanted to, he could have said,
Yeah.
you know that my daughter's wasted as your driver. Like, she could have some really good input here.
Why do you think he tends to gravitate towards Maya over Andy Sullivan?
Because I think that probably Ripley's had a word.
Okay. So you think it's influence from Ripley?
Partly. I mean, that we know that they go back away, and although they're not on good terms at this point in time, we know that they do go back away. And Ripley had obviously picked Maya out anyway, hadn't he, and said that she should go for captain. And then he'd watched
Yeah.
her for 6 weeks when he was interim captain. We find out in this episode that he was interim captain. So I think that he probably might have said to Sullivan, keep an eye on Bishop. I think that she'd be someone that you would want to promote up.
Okay.
So I think that probably has got something to do with it. But she is quite impressive as well. And she's a good soldier because Andy does just throw her weight around a lot and kind of pipe up a lot and, tries to sort of get involved without being asked. And whereas
Yeah.
Maya is a good soldier, Maya doesn't speak until she's spoken to with Sullivan, and she kind of waits her turn and she's very like, yes, sir, and just gets on with the job in hand. And he's a military man. And
Right.
so I think that he probably likes her attitude more than he likes
Okay.
Andy's attitude. I think Andy, he probably sees as a bit of a loose cannon, which, I mean, clearly she is because she launched herself into the drain.
That's funny.
And probably thinks that she's too big for her boots, which arguably she might be. Whereas Maya is a good soldier and probably someone that he thinks that he can mold and fashion a little bit. Yeah, and she's just good at her job.
She
So
is.
I think that that's probably why. I think he probably thinks that Andy needs to be kept in line and that Maya needs to be given a chance to rise up through the ranks. That's my read of it.
Yeah. I just always wondered because it kind of came out of the blue, just like with Andy, except Maya got it without even having to do or Andy got it without even having to do the test, didn't she? She just got it, right?
Yeah. She didn't have to apply. There was no interview process.
Yeah.
No, nothing.
So she got it. She got it even easier than Maya. Maya actually had to like work for it.
Yeah, I mean, it was literally handed to Andy,
right,
on a silver platter from her dad, whereas Maya had to fill out an application, go and be interviewed by Ripley. I don't know if there was like an exam she had to sit or anything, or if it was just an interview, or I don't know. But I mean, there was obviously a formal process that Maya went through.
That would have been cool to see a little bit of that.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, I like getting caught up in the details of how things work.
Yeah.
Like, I quite liked seeing the incinerator and the peer reviews.
The peer reviews. Yeah.
It would be nice to get an opportunity to see something like that in seasons to come.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. What else from this one? What else? I think this is quite a big episode in terms of Maya and Andy's relationship.
Yeah.
For those who haven't listened to our Spotlight on Maya and Andy series, we discussed this episode and how pivotal it was in their friendship arc, I think. Probably quite a bit in that.
Yes, definitely.
Because this is when Maya really starts to call Andy out on all of her kind of selfishness and self-importance, and how when she brings all of that into work, it actually ends up being dangerous. And I think this is arguably the beginning of Maya stepping out from Andy's shadow and kind of ceasing to be Andy's cheerleader and acknowledging to herself, at least, that she's Andy's equal.
Which is interesting to me that Maya ever even got in that position, because to me that's not her personality.
It's not, and I think that just kind of speaks to her adoration for Andy, like how much she absolutely adores Andy, because we see her later on, spoiler alert folks, but we see her later on dump Jack as soon as she hears that there's a promotion to be had, doesn't she? Yeah. I mean, and I'm not cynical enough to think that that's the only reason. I think that she really doesn't clearly she doesn't see Jack as her future. If you see someone as your future, you don't dump them for a work opportunity. So it really wasn't going anywhere. She really didn't see herself with Jack long term. But it's at that point when she hears that there's the potential for her to be promoted that she's like, oh, hello. Well, I can't do that all the while I'm with Jack, so we'll hoof him.
Bye.
So yeah. Yeah. So we give him the old heave ho. So she's obviously prepared to kind of step over almost anyone and everyone for her career, but not Andy.
Her loyalty with Andy runs deep
Yeah, but not Andy.
for some reason.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I just think it speaks to how much she really does care for Andy. And then again, spoiler alert, but again we see it later on because she feels that her relationship with Andy is being destroyed by her captaincy. She offers to step down. She tries to get herself demoted for Andy.
She does. Yeah, she does. But then Andy's like, I'm not going to take it just because you stepped down or something like that. Right?
Yeah, she says that
She
if
says something like,
she says that when she makes captain, it won't be because her friend handed her the job.
yeah. So,
I mean, it would be terrible to get handed a promotion twice in a row, right?
yeah.
But yeah, so I think that's why she's Andy's cheerleader and not Andy's competitor, is because she just loves her too much and she puts Andy ahead of herself.
That's true.
And then gets stomped
Which is why
on.
we did a good spotlight. We talked about a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
So if you haven't listened to it yet, you need to listen to our spotlight one.
Yeah, we did a deep dive. A deep dive.
We did. It was really interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was because, yeah. Well, anyway, just go listen to it if you want to hear our take
go
on
listen to it.
Maya and Andy. I thought that as a team in this episode, the whole of 19 had great teamwork and they showed a lot of synergy. And then especially the part, when Jack said to Dean, how big do you think Max is? And they all just read each other and read the situation right away. There's no further communication needed. And they just go and rescue Max like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, they did do good. They each had their part, right?
Yeah. And they knew what it was and they just got on with it.
Right.
And even Travis and Warren back at the station just got on with it. So do you think that this will finally have impressed Sullivan and given him some faith in them? Do you think that he'll ease off them a little bit with the mid-shift lineups and the running drills and all the stuff? Do you think that having seen them in action on this call will give him a new perspective on them?
I think some of them. He's impressed with and some of them he's not impressed with. Mainly being Andy.
Yeah, true.
Well, he straight up told her, like, you're not, I want you to do A, B, and C, and you're not doing A, B, and C. So she didn't listen.
Yeah, and who do you think you are?
Right. So I don't know.
No. Do you think there's an argument to be made for Andy being the cause of most of the problems that happened on the call? I mean, like, apart from the boy ending up in the sewer in the first place, which is arguably due to, police brutality and institutionalized racism that's so rampant in the police force over on your side. Well, the Met Police as well. Let's not talk about that, but we've got our own issues. But those issues are probably to blame for a young black boy running from the police.
Right.
And losing his mind so much that he ends up falling down a drain. Because let's face it, it's not Ryan, because Ryan's the sweetest man in the world.
Right.
So, everything kind of negative that happens after the boy falling into the drain, I think possibly is down to Andy. Because you've got Ryan and Jack sniping at each other the whole day because they're jealous of each other. And that's because of Andy. And then she ruins an opportunity to save the boy by leaping into the sewer because of her professional jealousy of Maya. If Warren hadn't come through with the plans of the construction plans in time, they could have blown up a whole city block with her jackhammer plan. Yep. And it was Maya who argued against that and said, we don't know what's under here. We can't just do that. So I don't think this was a particularly great episode for Andy.
It wasn't. No, not at all. She didn't impress him at all. Her goal was to impress him. Because isn't that what she told Dean when Dean didn't want to go back to the station?
By the end,
she was
I'm going to make him like me. And by the end of
Yeah,
the day, he will be basking in my awesomeness.
exactly. What happened to that?
Mm. Try again.
That's so
Oh
funny.
dear. Is there anything else that you want to say about this one?
No, I think it was an okay episode.
It wasn't a banger, was it?
No, it was okay.
It was average to slightly above average.
Yeah, I'll go with that. It wasn't the worst one.
No, they had some good stuff between Maya and Andy, I think. I think there was a lot of. Do you know what it was? I think it was a lot of scene setting this episode. I think that they were doing a
Yeah,
lot to kind of show us where we are and where we're going to go.
yeah,
So yeah,
that's true. So some foreshadowing.
yes, yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah, rather than anything substantive, I think it's a like let us turn you around and point you in this direction. And I think for that it did a good job.
Yeah,
And it's always nice to see Deluxe
Deluxe.
again. Not my favourite Deluca, but here's my second favourite Deluca.
It's just funny that she calls him Deluxe.
Deluxe. Love Vic.
She doesn't call Karina that though.
She does not. Maybe that was just her special nickname for Andrea. God rest her soul.
Yeah, I just watched that episode the other day.
It's so sad.
It is. And then I watched the one where she screams at the fire truck.
Yeah, that's a heartbreaker. Did you ever watch I know you've watched like little bits and pieces of Grey's here and there. Did you ever watch his memorial service that took place in the parking lot?
I did not.
It's really sad. Maya's in it.
Is she?
Yeah, just being supportive, doing a lot of back rubbing. But
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I just can't get myself to watch Grays. I don't know why.
Do you know what? I think it is quite overwhelming if you've got to start from the beginning, or if you feel like you've got to start from the beginning, and you look at basically 20 years of like 2 decades of episodes, and there's like 25
Yeah,
episodes a
that's a
season.
lot.
Yeah. So it just feels like a mountains climb, I think.
It does.
But I think just dive
So
in at season 14, mate.
why? Because that's when Karina's introduced.
I'm pleading the fifth.
Somebody messaged us that they want us to make T-shirts that say "My love is pure." Now I'm sweating. They literally want T-shirts that say that.
Oh my god. Well, it should be a muscle
You would
shirt
wear
if
it.
I'm. Yeah,
You could wear it. I could see you wearing it.
maybe I'll make myself one just to make that person happy.
Yeah, because we all know that your love is pure, right?
It is though.
I don't know if I believe you.
I'll tell you what it is. This is not the first time this has happened to me in my life. Because there was a thing that I
Uh-oh.
yeah. No, so no, look, I've got a couple of British Indian friends.
Okay.
Several British Indian friends. And one of them is a boy and he is very, very handsome and he always dresses impeccably and he smells incredible, always.
Uh-huh.
And so when he was looking particularly good or when he smelt particularly good, I would comment and say to him, "Oh man, you smell good today, Rahul." Or like, "Oh, look at you, you look very pretty today." And I would
Uh-huh.
pay him a compliment. And then one of my other British Indian friends was like, "Oh, I see you, bigging up Rahul. What am I over here, like chopped liver?" And I was like, "No, you're looking very lovely too. And then somehow, with this one particular girl, it spiraled, and she suddenly started saying that I had a crush on Rahul, and it was a joke because obviously
Yeah.
I'm gayer than Christmas.
Yeah.
But but then it kind of turned from that to that I also had a crush on her because I would always correct myself and say, no, you're looking very lovely too, or pointedly say, oh, you're smelling very nice today, to make a point that it wasn't just Rahul that I could compliment, it was also her too.
Yeah.
So she took it from Rahul to Rahul and her, and then she just decided that British Indian people were my type. And so then any time that, like, say, like a new British Indian person would start at work, or we would like see, another British Indian person out and about, she'd just be like, oh, Mel, there's someone for you. And so then it became like a thing, and it's just simply not, it's just obviously like not true. But then because it was said around other friends, and at work and stuff, it kind of became legend. And then other people would say like, oh yeah, well, because Mel's got a thing for Indian people. And I'd be like, wait, hold on. Like, I don't not, have, like, I'm not anti, but I definitely don't have like a fetish or something about Indian people. But it just became like a thing. And so and then I used to get embarrassed about that situation, and because people used to point out, like, be like, oh, she's super pretty and she's your type, and I'd be like, no, it's not. It just became like a thing. And now I feel like the same thing has happened with Karina / Stefania, because I admire Stefania's acting and I love Karina DeLuca as a character, but now it's like become a thing that because it's been said so many times that I have a crush, that now I get embarrassed anytime anyone mentions the crush, because it feels like it's grown into its own myth / legend that is not true, and now it makes me embarrassed. And so now I do giggle and get sweaty when it gets mentioned.
Do you think my love for Merle is pure?
No. The fact that you refer to her as your wife suggests.
Well, Karina's your wife.
No.
No.
No. See, this is what I mean. I've never said that, but it's grown into its own.
No, you just said that she's your gateway drug, which is not any better.
No, what is? Yeah, my gateway drug to Station 19, because she moved from Grey's Anatomy to Station 19, and so I was like, oh well, if Karina's going over there, then I'll go over there. So
you followed her.
So Karina DeLuca was my gateway drug, because now obviously Station 19 is one of my great loves, and I would never have found my way to Station 19 had it not been for Karina DeLuca. So that's how come Karina DeLuca is my gateway drug. She was my gateway drug to Station 19.
Okay. Got it.
See? And my love is pure.
Okay. We're going to get you the t-shirt.
Oh, dear.
Because somebody wants one. They were like, you please make a t-shirt that says this.
See what we can do. We'll see what we can do. Themes.
I didn't really see any themes. What about you?
I wondered if it was letting go.
Okay.
Kind of letting go, particularly of people or of ideas or of things that you love or things that you assumed you would never lose. So, I mean, Max literally has to let go of the pipe if he's going to be saved, which seems counterintuitive, to let go and get caught in the stream of water, but he has to do it if he's going to grab the floaty and be saved. But he also has to let go of his mum.
Yeah.
Grant has to let go of Travis and kind of let him run back into the fire, and he can't keep a stranglehold on him. He has to let Grant go. Pruitt has to let go of 19.
Okay.
Because he's literally being thrown out of his office. But he's going to have to let go of that. and of Andy, because Andy's moving out, so Pruitt's going to have to let go of Andy. Andy, I think, probably has the most to let go of because she has to let go of Ryan because he hasn't spoken to her in 6 weeks. So I think that ship sailed. She has to let go of her secure but not awesome living situation with Pruitt. She's realised that she's outgrown that, so she's going to have to let that go. She has to let go of her preconceived ideas of how things work at the station because she has just been let to run riot, I think. So she has to let go of doing whatever she wants, whenever she wants, because Pruitt kind of favoured her, didn't he, and was used to having everything her own way. And so now she's had to let go of that situation and kind of fall in line. I think she's learning that she's going to have to let go of how things were and move on to how things are now.
That's a good way to put it.
Maybe letting go.
Okay.
What are your takeaways from this episode? What are you looking forward to seeing progress or happen next?
It's a good question.
Thanks.
Because I don't remember what happens in the next episode, which is a good thing, I guess, because
Yeah.
it's like, okay, what do I want to see?
Yeah.
I'd like to see when do Maya and Jack get together?
I think that's quite a bit later on. I want to say
Is it? Because
episode.
I want to see how that happens again.
I want to say it's really far in, like maybe even like episode 10 or something.
Okay, so not that won't be the next episode, but I eventually want to see how that happens again.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing how things progress with Maya and Andy and their new work/home situation.
Yeah.
Because things are a bit tricky between them as it is. And then if they're having to live together and work together, I think that might be a fantastic time.
Yeah, for sure.
Who do you think had the best growth in this episode?
Probably Maya.
I put the same.
Yep.
Yeah, speaking up about Andy treading on her toes.
Yeah, I think Maya did a good job.
What was your favourite scene, or what did you think was the best scene?
I liked when Maya told Andy off in the locker room.
That's what I put.
Did you really?
Yeah, Maya and Andy in the turnout room. It says on my sheet of paper.
I like that scene.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Which is interesting that we both picked that one because we didn't even really talk about it in that
No,
great
we didn't.
detail.
No.
Yeah, so that's cool.
Best line, best piece of dialogue for you?
Oh God, I don't know. I have no idea.
I've got a silly one and a sensible one because I feel like I always either do sublime or ridiculous. So I've chosen a sublime and a ridiculous. So if I'm being silly, I really liked Dean's any fashion choice, sir, any fashion choice.
Okay.
And the way that he delivered the line. And I quite like it when they just put in lines for the sake of it. Like there was zero need for that apart from it was just funny. And so I just enjoyed the silliness of it. Or actually, Maya's, that was a compliment, by the way. That was quite funny as well.
Yeah, the dialogue between Jack and Maya was cute.
Yeah. But if I'm being serious and sensible, I would say Maya telling Andy that she could hear everyone telling her to stand down, but she had to jump in.
Yeah.
So the dialogue between them in the turnout room.
Yeah, for sure.
Who was your MVP for this episode?
That's hard. I think either Maya or I really liked the scenes with Pruitt, Ben, and Travis when they were looking for the I really liked them three. And yeah, I think they did a good job. So maybe those three or Maya.
Yeah, Danielle Savory was my MVP for this episode.
Yeah.
Because she had humour with Jack, which we know that she can pull off brilliantly with kind of the early seasons Maya. So we had the very kind of almost like robotic Maya with it. That was a compliment, by the way,
Yeah.
and all that
Yeah.
stuff. But then we also had the drama with Andy. So I felt
Right.
like we got full range savory in this episode, and I liked it.
Good.
Did you have a most gifable moment?
When Travis walks in with the donuts. Probably that one.
That was good. That was good. That was good. I am going to go with Maya in a harness for Bailey.
Okay. That's fair.
Yeah. And then that's that.
That's that.
That's that. So next week we have got episode 203, which is Home to Hold On To. And it says the firefighters are called to rescue an old hoarder from the collapsing apartment.
That's a good episode.
That is a good episode.
Be excited to talk about that one.
Yeah, it's a good one. So there we go. We're making our way slowly through season 2.
Woohoo!
What's next on your agenda today?
Abraham has soccer at 9:30, so I might go try to lay down until see his soccer and see if I can maybe get a little nap in.
I'm expecting to hear that he scored another goal. We're 2 for 2.
He's scored a goal every game so far.
I'm expecting to hear that the trend is going to keep going.
Yeah, he gets so excited. He'll like run over to us and be like, "I scored a goal," and his coach is like, "Abraham, we're still playing the game. Like, you can't just run over to your parents."
Oh, bless his little heart.
So it's sweet, yeah.
Oh,
But just that, and then celebrating Obelix's birthday on Sunday.
oh yes, it's he turns 3.
2.
He turns 2. I thought he was already 2.
No, he turns 2.
Oh, bless him.
Yep.
Very nice. Are you having like a little party or?
Yeah, just a really small one. Just got him a couple gifts because he's 2, so he doesn't really
he doesn't
really remember anything.
It would just be like the same day for him. He'll still wake up at ridiculous o'clock and ask to watch Nemo.
Yep.
And
Mama, Moat, Nemo.
There you go.
Okay, got it, buddy.
Bless him. All right. Well, I will let you go get a nap in.
I hope so.
And I look forward to hearing from you anon.
All right. Sounds good. It's good talking to you.
Good talking to you, mate. Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.